So today we'll be talking a little bit about the company of Qore and also Qore, our product. So first of all, the problem statement or the why. The chemical industry is a major contributor to global CO2 emissions. And this is really our why. Global CO2 emissions, when we look by sectors, that chemical industry accounts for around 6%. When we take into account the transportation, that increases that footprint to around 10% of all CO2 emissions are due to the chemical industry. Now, why is that? We've got a few key reasons. The main one that we're targeting on is oil and gas is the raw material for the majority of these. So the petro industry really touches everything that we use day to day. So that's a huge contributor to part of this problem. The other issue, of course, is that these processes are all very energy intensive. So to convert these different chemicals into the products that we use every day is a very energy intensive process as well. Furthermore, a lot of the transport involved is a very long distance from where the product is made to where it's converted to where it's made into that final product and then shipped back to the end users. So one solution, and our solution is called Qore. Qore is a next generation of bio-based 1,4-butane diol, which is made from dent corn here in Iowa. I will continue to refer to 1,4-butane diol as BDO, which is the chemical structure. So it is an intermediate that is used in a host of products. It's used in things like plastics, in apparel, in footwear, in EV batteries, cosmetics, electronics, etc. Currently, it's being produced from petrobasis, most of it being produced in Asia from hard coal. What we are doing is producing this same product. It's a drop-in, which means it has the same specifications as the petro. However, we're producing it through a novel fermentation process using corn, dent corn, as our feedstock instead. In the same way, it can go into all these same products because it is a drop-in, which means it's a one-to-one. So if manufacturers are already using conventional BDO, they're able to utilize our product in the same exact way, in the same one-to-one ratio. And you guys just stop me at any point if you have questions. On this tree here, you see some of the different derivatives that it goes into. Polyurethane, thermopolyurethane, probably some of the more common ones. It also goes into PTMEG, which is a fiber in PBT fibers. So things like spandex fibers like that, and then a lot of single-use plastics. Now, it shows up in a wide variety of percentages. It depends greatly on those manufacturers' recipes and how they put those products together. So in spandex, for example, it can be as much as 70 to 80% of that product. Now, our product is 100% bio-based. So when we look at that inclusion, we are looking at about a 70 to 80% inclusion in some of those fibers. Same with thermoplastic polyurethane. So that's in shoes and a lot of those harder, if you think about like soccer cleats or football cleats, those harder rubbers are more rigid. It goes into that. And then also polyurethane. So that is coatings, the softer foams, things like that. And then also the single-use plastics as well. And then it's just mixed in a variety of ways. So currently, these are all things that we're wearing and using that are made from petroleum. So again, that's where a lot of that large chemical number and large contribution to the CO2 footprint comes from, is from the heavy use and reliance on the petro industry. So who is Qore, who is Qore, and how do they all fit together? So Qore is a joint venture between Cargill and Helm. Living in Iowa, you most likely have heard of Cargill. Cargill is a leader in trading and processing of ag commodities, but also they're experts in industrial fermentation. So this facility is built adjacent to the Cargill facility in Eddyville, Iowa. We are utilizing the feedstock, which is dent corn from Cargill as well. And Cargill has that relationship with the farmers, and we are relying on them to really have those relationship with our farmers, get them involved, utilize their product, and then utilize them for our production side of things as well. Helm is a German company, also a private company. They're a leader in chemical and marketing distribution. So they are doing our marketing side and they are selling our product and distributing it as well. And together we make up the joint venture called Qore. And Qore's product is Qore. So a little about the Qore production facility. So this is a picture taken this summer, last summer, and we are actually starting production next week, which I'm very excited about. It is about a $360 million investment. As I mentioned, it's adjacent to the Cargill biorefinery facility, which you can see here on, if you look at the photo, that's on the right side of the photo. And it has a capacity of about 66,000 tons of Qore per year. And that will be at our full capacity. It's the first facility of this kind in the US, and it is based on the Genomatica technology that we are licensing from Genomatica. Are there any questions before I get into the next section on the company or our product? If not, I will move on to sustainable production. This is really at the heart of what we're doing. Our goal is to make a product that can be used in the same way as the petrol product without the impact to our environment. So how are we doing this? Again, most of you are from Iowa or familiar with corn, at least. You've been in Iowa enough. So what we did is we're utilizing corn, as I mentioned, as our feedstock. Corn, as you're aware, pulls that CO2 from the environment, sequesters it into that corn kernel to make the starch portion, or the dextrose portion, if you will. What Cargill does is take that corn, break it down, refine it into corn starch, and further into a simpler dextrose. And that dextrose is what we're using in our fermentation process. Through a novel production process, we're able to utilize some novel organisms to ferment that sugar into Qore, or 1,4-butane-diol. And then through a series of steps, we're able to extract a very purified form of BDO. So a question that we get a lot using corn as our feedstock is, well, isn't that taking away from the food population, or from the food supply? And what we like to point out is that there are three different types of corn primarily grown here in the US. We've got sweet corn, popcorn, and then field corn. Sweet corn is obviously what we all enjoy in the summer. Popcorn, you're very familiar with. Now, field corn is not able to be directly consumed by humans. One could eat it, however, it's very high in starch and not a sweet type of starch. So really, it is not used for direct human consumption. Now, a little bit about that breakdown, and the interesting thing about corn as a grain is that we can fractionate it, or what we mean by that is break apart those certain components and utilize what is has the most value for our intended purpose. In this particular case, we're most interested in the starch because we're doing a fermentation. So we want to break down that starch portion and use that dextrose. Now, the corn oil is utilized for other purposes, as well as the protein and fiber. And if you look at this chart here on the right, it is a little bit small, but you can see that about 47% of the US produced corn goes into animal feed. So the orange here shows direct animal feed, and then that aqua, that 8%, is DDGS, or distillers dried grains, which goes it's a higher protein feed that is used in a lot of dairy industry, feed industry, etc. We've then got about 29% that is used in the ethanol industry. About 15% is exported. And then we have about 9% of that remains for glucose and dextrose. Part of that is high fructose corn syrup, some starch, cereals, potable alcohol, etc. And from that 9% is where we pull for our fermentation, and where all fermentations pull from. So that might be a citric acid fermentation, potable alcohol fermentation, erythritol fermentation, a whole host of fermentations is where we're pulling that from. So when people talk about food competition, what we like to remind people is that honestly, our world has a carbohydrate excess. We are protein short. So when we look at this, all those portions that are utilized for animal feed or for protein aren't being impeded by the use of the dextrose for this fermentation. So it's a very small amount that we're actually using for this process. Any questions in that area? If not, I'll move on to land use. This is another common question that we get. Can this land be used for something better? Or, why are we tearing up land to use for corn production or soybean production, et cetera? And this is USDA data. And I should have pointed out the last couple of graphs was also USDA data as well. And what we have here, you can see this blue line. It goes all the way back to the 1860s. And we can see that our land use for corn has been very stable since the 1860s. Now, this red line is our yield, or the millions of pounds of corn produced. As you see, obviously that line has gone up substantially due to advances in farming practices, biotechnology advances, et cetera. However, that land use has remained stable. So we are able to get more corn out of the same amount of land based on farming practices and those advances. Also, the majority of farmable acres in Iowa, about 94% of them are used for soybeans and corn. And again, most of you are probably familiar with this, but we do generally, our farmers are doing a rotation, soybeans, corn. And there's a nice symbiotic relationship there where the soybeans are able to fix that nitrogen, put the nitrogen back in that the corn is using. So I guess it's a one-way relationship, actually. Corn isn't putting all that much back in for the soybeans, but the soybeans are putting it back in. So sustainable results. Something that is really important to us is that we don't just want to say that we are better for the environment. We don't just want to say that our carbon footprint is smaller. We're doing the data to show that as well. As I mentioned, we are not in production yet. So we did what we call a prospective life cycle assessment, a cradle to gate, which means from before that corn is even planted in the field until that product is shipped out. That is encompasses our assessment. And what we found is that we have a reduction of up to 86% when we look at greenhouse gas emissions when compared to conventional BDO. So that's at 86% less CO2 is being emitted per kilogram of BDO made, which is a huge improvement. Now we have a couple other comparatives in there as well, a couple other methods in which BDO can be made. And as you see here, we have a number of 2.7 without biogenic carbon. And now if we were to include the biogenic carbon or include that carbon that's captured, we'd be all the way down to 0.7. However, we're not doing that because we don't know the end of life. Is this product going into EV batteries? How will those be utilized, recycled, et cetera? Is it going into apparel? Can that be recycled? Or what is the end of life story there? Therefore, we're trying to be a little bit more conservative and not double count, if you will, and we're using that 2.7 number instead. In addition to the greenhouse gas emissions, we're also looking at things like water use, land use, toxicology numbers, and a number of other factors that are important to our customers, to us, and to our customers. So we also want to back our sustainability claims with certifications. These are just a number of certifications that we are in the process of or already have or will have once we're in production. ISCC Plus is a traceability and transparency certification. What that means is it follows all the way from the farmer all the way through the end of the making of a final product. So for example, let's say a pair of leggings that contain Lycra, all the way through that product, and all that goes all the way through to show what were these farmers' practices, were practices safe in the factory, what are the benefits to these employees? Are they being treated fairly? Are they having safe work conditions? What kind of chemicals are we using? What does that water discharge look like? What is our off gas look like? So everything from work conditions through environmental impacts. USDA certified bio-based is another one that we're really excited about because we have a 100% bio-based product. This is tested through C14 or carbon 14 testing. We can send a sample in, they run that test, and they can tell us how much of that is biogenic carbon, which is a very helpful test for us. A lot of these other ones really just have to do with compliance for specific areas and specific uses. Now, something that is unique about us, I feel it is We really value our farmers. And part of that transparency piece is bringing out our customers and bringing out our customers' customers to meet our farmers and to ask those questions. We can tell stories about our farmer, like Steve Kuiper here. He's a member of the Iowa Corn Board and a farmer in Otley, Iowa, and the surrounding area. We can talk about him all day long, but we want our customers to be able to ask, what kind of chemicals are you using? What kind of practices are you doing? Tell me about how you're managing water. Tell us about how you're managing runoff. What crops did you have on this field last year? And to have them have that direct access really gives a lot of reassurance to our customers and to our customers as well. This is the visit last year that we had. Just shows we had a group of customers come out right after planting. So the corn was just starting to emerge. And as I mentioned, we are starting production next week. This just shows a little bit of a timeline of our production. This has been in the works for probably 12 years. So from the funding to finding our strategic partners to doing the engineering design to doing the actual building. As you see here, I think groundbreaking started in 2021, and here we are, almost midway through 2025, and we are ready for the start of production, which we are very excited about. And that is really the end of my presentation. I wanted to leave plenty of time for you all to ask questions and have the opportunity to walk back through any other slides that you would like to. So I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. That was really great. Maybe I could start with a question. So
Sure.
You mentioned this took a long time, like 12 years to get it. Was it driven mostly by one of the partners? Was Cargill interested? Was Helm? Or how did it really kind of start as an entity?
Yeah. I'll tell you what I do know, Nigel. I wasn't involved at that time, but we have a public relationship with the Lycra company.
Okay.
And the Lycra company is branded spandex, if you're not familiar. And we've been talking to them for quite some time. Now, many, many years ago, I think it was all the way back in the 2010s, Lycra actually had a different technology where they tried to release a bio-based product. And really, it was too soon. The market just wasn't ready for it yet. And so unfortunately, that did not work for them at that time. But after doing some more market research and such, it was determined that now is the time.
Okay.
Now is the time to start moving on that. So they did delay their old project and then pick back up with us. And it was driven in part, we needed to have at least one strategic partner before we jumped in.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think this is something that I've got several questions, right? But I'll start with, I think that this is something that is good for Iowa, it's good for the world, right? To have this bio-based product that's useful for so many applications. I'm the director of our Iowa NSF project. Nigel's the associate director for research and tech transfer, and we would love to help share any stories or announcements you have about this on our various social media channels, so that people can see that support of Genomatica, right, and other companies has led to this kind of development of new jobs, adding value to agriculture, right? So anything you can share with us that we can help promote on our social media platforms, we would love to be able to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. The area that we're most active is on LinkedIn. So if you're not already following us at Qore, that's Qira, go ahead and do that. And, I'm glad that you brought that up because job creation was a really big thing to us, and the job training. We were able to create, I think, 40 new jobs, if I'm not mistaken. And those were new jobs, not just pulling Cargill people from another facility to ours, but those were new jobs. And those are technical professional jobs that we were able to bring in. In addition to that, this construction took 4.5 years. And so through that time, a lot of skilled labor was brought in, a lot of welders, it really added a lot to South Central Iowa. In addition to that, I think it's no surprise everyone's aware that grain prices are very low right now. And for our farmers to have a unique market for their corn is very exciting to them. For our farmers to have the hope of technologies like this is really important to them. And for them to be able to contribute to something that's reducing the product carbon footprint also really important to them. So yeah, if you would like to share any of our LinkedIn posts, and if you want to pull those into any other means that that your group follows, yeah, go ahead and do that. We'd love that.
And maybe we have a YouTube channel that we inherited from another project, and so
Sure.
it does have a very large number of followers. As to how much engagement there is, I don't know, but maybe we could have we could help write a story or something. I don't know, right? And we're always looking for content that's of interest beyond just our team members. So along with those jobs, one of the things our project is trying to address is it's our understanding that there is a shortage of operator level trained workers, right? And that's a problem in Iowa. And we have a social cognitive career theory study being done at University of Northern Iowa to try to understand this, like what's the problem with recruiting students into these types of jobs. Can you speak, how difficult was it for your team to fill those 40 new jobs?
Yeah, so I was not part of the hiring process, so I'm fairly close to the operations side of things. They had a fairly large hiring fair, and from a salary perspective, there's a lot of industry in this area in terms of Pellicorp, Vermeer, PPI, LDJ, et cetera, Vocker, a number of companies, Weiler, and they were very competitive with their pricing. And in addition, or with their salary, and in addition to that, they have an amazing training program. So they brought in these operators just from a variety of places. One person was a former nurse. She left her nursing career kind of midway in her career to come in and trained in. So just a wide variety of a group of people coming in. What is always the struggle is the retention, keeping them there. So that has been a bit of a struggle in that operator role. So I know they're still trying to kind of backfill and make sure they have enough. And we do have 4 shifts, I believe. And it's a 24-hour operation, so there is no downtime. There are no weekends off. So that's also something that sometimes deters people, but the pay should compensate at least a bit for that. So
can you go a little more detail on the training? Who is providing training?
Yeah, so actually they Qore received a grant from the state. I don't remember the specific name of it off the top of my head, but they actually received a grant from the state to do the training, and they were able to bring in offsite trainers to offer the technical training. How do we check pumps? How do we change out pumps? How do we change valves? And these operators have been in training for probably 2 years before actually starting up. There wasn't experience needed. They didn't need to know how to do these things. They went through a very thorough training and really worked hard to create that team environment as well.
If you could help put us in contact with those people, I think that would be beneficial for.
Yeah, I can tell you the name of the grant. That would be helpful, I think. Let me see here if I can find it.
We can always do that later, right? Offline.
Yeah, I might have to. Yeah, I might have to look. I've got a lot of text from this individual in my team's messages. So, yeah. What other questions?
If I can jump on the workforce development train for a second.
Yes.
Another thing we're interested is we've got grad students and some undergrads who are participating in our program, interested in learning about biomanufacturing as a career, as an industry, placing them as interns. There are some NSF dollars to kind of help support that, but I'm just curious. You're very new. I mean, you're just starting up right now, but is that something in the plan, is to bring on interns, or what would that look like?
That's a good question. I know Cargill has a great intern program, and I would assume that Qore would be the same. So the plant is operated by Cargill. There are actually only 3 Qore employees, and the rest of the employee workforce is Cargill. So I would assume that they would offer up internships, at career fairs and such in the same way for this facility as Cargill has for their other facilities as well.
Okay.
What other questions do we have?
I was
gonna say I've got questions, but I just sent you a thing on LinkedIn. I might follow up with some things that I have, again, also related to the grant, but will be probably easier to do offline, and you're very local, so you're a big person to talk about some of those for me. So I'll ask the broader question that I popped in my head while you were talking. And obviously the plant isn't online, but it's to give a perspective, especially to an academic like myself. The general, right, like I guess over the last 20 years since I've been studying like bio-based polymers, is that they're more expensive than the petroleum derived counterparts. So do you have a first order approximation of like initially what the price difference will be between, again, I don't need technical details.
Yeah.
I just like a broad, like it'll be roughly twice as expensive, but after we depreciate and get more infrastructure, blah, blah, they could be equal. I understand all that, but I'm sure that's the hard part, right? Is say, yeah, how are you going to pay X when I could pay Y? I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So there is not a straight answer to that. And the reason why is that we have what's called value-based pricing. So we will look at someone's product carbon footprint and see, how much BDO, how much conventional petro BDO are they currently using? And then based on that percentage, we're able to come up with a price that helps them to see, okay, we drop your product carbon footprint by this much and your cost goes, we drop your product carbon footprint by this much and your cost is this much. We drop it by this much and your cost is this much, and so forth. So the larger impact, really the higher the price. Now, it is not cost prohibitive is what we're finding. There are a lot of companies that have a really big push for bio-based products, or those what we call our tier 3, chemicals or tier 3 supplies. They need to drop that somehow. And instead of buying credits or things like that, they would rather have a bio-based or have a product, have that raw material that has that lower carbon footprint. So you're right, Jay, it is higher, but it's not inhibitory.
Okay, yeah, priced. I kind of see what you're saying. And that some of those didn't, well, I mean, it sounds like too, you've got some things incentivized that maybe 20 years ago, like when PLA was just hitting the market, like that they weren't there, and maybe even Cargill wasn't thinking about things like that to scale pricing in different ways. Yeah,
and then the other thing that we offer is co-marketing and co-branding. So again, using the Lycra company as an example, we do speech engagements together. We go to different conferences together, speak together. We do farmer videos together. We have these customers come out, walk through the farm together. We do a lot of co-branding. So eventually, when our product is live and you look on that hang tag on your leggings, it'll say Lycra and Qore. It'll say both. So that's something that's really important to us, and that we found that is important to our customers as well, is to have that brand recognition.
Yeah, I think everybody knows Lycra, right? But this is a chance to
Yeah. What other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you for your presentation. So my name is Chunhui Xiang. I'm a social professor in the apparel events and hospitality management. So I do know Lycra. So actually my question is about, do you know when this bio-based Lycra will be available, or is already available? Or that's my question.
Yeah, it is not available yet because we are not starting production until next week. Lead time wise, we hope to have product in our rail cars by the end of July, or I'm sorry, end of June. And then we hope that some of these companies can have product on their shelves by the holiday season is our hope.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions?
So this facility is not just a first in the US, it's a first in the world.
You're right, Carrie. It is the first BDO facility, bio-based BDO facility at scale, to Carrie's point. There have been a number of them that are small scale, they're pilot facilities, but that is something unique that Carrie brings up, is that we are to scale, which means we are able to not just have the companies like Lycra and their customers do small lots, they're able to convert over whole product lines to using bio-based. That's a good point, thanks.
Can I ask some details about the process?
Sure.
So I'm familiar with Genomatica, right, and the work that they've done. So like, how long does a batch, right, in your fermenter last? Like, how long does your organism need to be stable genetically?
Yep. Well, we have a couple different stages to our fermentation process. As you can imagine, we've got our initial lab scale, and then we grow that up through a series of pre-fermenters, main fermenters. From that point, we kill off all the organisms so that it is not escaping, if you will. And then we separate out those solids. So we go through a filtration process and then a nanofiltration process to get rid of most of those solids. We then take that liquid, it goes through a cation and anion exchange to remove a lot of those. Then we go into the dewatering phase where we're really starting to concentrate that down. From after that evaporation stage, then we go into distillation. So just when you think about any spirit that you enjoy, we put it into the distillation. We get rid of those sugars that were undigestible. We get rid of those volatile organics that we don't want in the product. And then we have a couple of steps that actually aren't available in the conventional market that we think should make our product just stand out even a little bit more. So those are kind of our general unit operations for the process. It's a pretty quick fermentation. It's a bacterial fermentation, which is public knowledge. So that goes pretty quick.
So are you operating it like in batch mode or like continuous chemostat?
It is not continuous. It is batch mode. It's a fed process. And that allows us to, if there should be a contamination, to stop it early and not have to waste all that dextrose and figure out what to do with that. So
how long are your batches? Can you say?
I cannot say. Okay. Yeah, Carrie?
Can you say how much of that is happening down the hill at the Cargill facility versus the Qore facility?
Yeah, so the Cargill facility is in charge of making the dextrose. So Cargill is sending us, they're processing the corn and sending that dextrose syrup up to us. In addition to that, we're utilizing some of their other utilities like steam and water and wastewater as well. Something that is unique about our process is we recycle a lot. We recycle a lot of heat. We recycle a lot of water. And that is really helping our product carbon footprint as well. So when we go back to do our production LCA, we will take all of that into account as well. Is that what you were asking, Carrie?
Yeah, so all fermentation is at Qore. None of it
Correct.
is at main plant. Cool.
Correct. Yep.
So Andrea, looking to the future, upon glorious success, right, the Lycra takes off. Is the focus to just be BioPDO, or are there other kind of strategy organisms, different materials you want to make? Or?
We are really just looking and focusing on doing BDO and doing that really well. In addition to that, if our volume, we already have about 2/3 of our volume sold out. So if we have a demand for more than that, we will possibly look at doing an expansion. May that be in the Eddyville area or Blair or Fort Dodge, one of our other facilities. And none of that has been determined. That's just pie in the sky.
That's really great to see this technology, coming to fruition, right? I'm in that metabolic engineering space, right? Like what Genomatica does. And a lot of times I feel like we're just playing, right? None of this is really going to work, right? It's just, people want to do cool stuff. So it's really great to see this making it to the commercial point.
Yeah. And it just takes a quick Google search to see, and Laura, you're already aware of this, that we are not privy to Genomatica's technology. They are able to license it elsewhere. And again, under a quick Google search, you can see that there's another company who is starting up as well. They are, however, using sugarcane as their feedstock. I have quite a few resources on why sugarcane isn't as good as corn, I guess, or as favorable. And a lot of that has to do with that ISCC Plus certification that I talked about when we look at labor laws and really just some environmental footprint things around sugarcane and how it's utilized and kind of what the history there looks like. So it will also be in Asia, and in general, manufacturing processes, they in general are a little more energy intensive. An advantage that we have is that we are utilizing Mid-American energy, and that's about 90% renewable wind power right now for 2024 into 2025. That changes here shortly. The percentage of that grid tends to change. It was as high as 96%, and now it's back to about 90%.
So maybe another question you will not want to answer is the trade situation, tariff concerns.
Yeah, a lot of concern, really a lot of concern. When you think about your shoes and your clothes, they're made in Asia. And why they're made in Asia is because that's where the converters are. And something that I try to gently remind people of is we've been in this process for 12 years or so, getting this plant up and running. And there are a lot of limitations to starting up a facility. So doing that in 4 or 8 years just isn't feasible. And so that is a really big concern. Now, this is a US made product, Qore is. However, a good portion of it is going over to Asia because that's where our converters are. There are no US converters. So there's no one to take that BDO product and make it into PTMEG here in the US. There are very few, if any, at least not large scale converters here in the US to take that BDO and convert it into polyurethane or thermopolyurethane. Those are all in Asia. So yeah, that's a great concern for us. In addition to that, with the current administration, also is that, petro is down. So the cost of petro is much lower now, which makes, the question about pricing that Jay had, which makes that a lot more difficult conversation for us. Because as that BDO petro price goes down, we want to remain competitive, and that's difficult to do in that market. Additionally, it's also hard because there aren't the incentives for reducing product carbon footprint like there have been in the past. There isn't that push to do the better thing for our environment right now. So there aren't the incentives that there used to be, which is also another somewhat problematic thing, another hurdle or barrier rather for us to overcome.
Could have asked that question earlier, so we would be ending on a better note.
That's okay.
I'll end on a different note, but I don't.
We have time for probably one more question.
It's just. Have you thought of? We've had students do tours at Cargill before. Do you think it'd be possible to have something for students to do, or a field trip or something like that?
Yeah, for certain.
Okay.
Right now is an extraordinarily busy time, but once we get up and running this summer,
talk to you about it later.
Yeah, we should.
These are not things that we plan even on the academic scale. Next week.
Carrie, hey Carrie, do you want to take like a minute and a half and tell them about what you're doing?
Yes, ma'am. So my job at Cargill, I am in our smart manufacturing team. I'm the product manager of Connected Worker, and part of that is digital twins. So next week I will be at the facility doing a scan so that we could have like a Google Street View like experience of the facility.
Oh, fun.
So even if we cannot get people in there due to the work going on, there's an opportunity that we could do kind of a virtual walkthrough. So.
And Carrie and I used to work on that before I took this job. I worked with Carrie on that project. So
no, I know it can be tricky. I mean, you've had Central students down at Cargill before, but I know there's just a lot of IP stuff and things that you guys are like, can't show you everything. But they had a really good experience. The students that went.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of times it just comes
I'm joining Cargill from oil and gas. And when I did my site visits, I was like, look, everything kind of looks the same. I want to smell the smells. and that was what I was most interested in when I first started.
Definitely.
Yeah, as an organic chemist, that fascinates me too, right? Because so much of our everything we get was petroleum based, and now we can start starting to see a shift, right? That maybe someday we can get the BDO from Aldrich and it's like completely bio-based instead of completely petroleum based like it is now.
Yeah.
Well, since we're up on the time, and this is probably going to close because I don't know how to set these things up, I want to thank Andrea so much for your time.
Yeah.
And, we'll definitely relay this video to others who weren't able to make it today. But super informative.
And you guys have my email, so if you have questions, you can just go ahead and email me directly as well, and I'll do my best to answer those for you and direct you. Again, if you're not already following Qore on LinkedIn, please do. It kind of is showing the process as we get going into our startup. So feature some of our operators, some of our farmers, and a little bit about our application as well.
Yeah, good luck on the summer. It's going to be busy.
Thanks.
Great.
It's going to be fun. So great. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.